Who was better, Babe Ruth or Barry Bonds? Ted Williams or Willie Mays? Walter Johnson or Christy Mathewson? A retrospective questions that sports fans and pundits have been asking themselves throughout history. Many debates have been held throughout many ages about many players, but that debate ends here. Welcome back to Who Was Better, a series where I go over two baseball players from any era at any position and pit them against each other to find out who was better. And today we have two of the best defensive players in the history of the MLB, Ozzie Smith versus Brooks Robinson. But who was better? Let's find out. Osborne Earl Smith was born December 26, 1954 in Mobile, Alabama. When he was young, the Wizard of Oz practiced his reflexes by bouncing a rubber ball off of concrete and seeing how fast he could catch it. He played baseball at a mid-level in high school and was actually a walk-on at California Polytechnic State University. In fact, he only got playing time due to an injury to the regular shortstop, but Smith took the opportunity and never looked back as he was drafted 2 years later in 1976. He played in the MLB for 19 years from ages 23 to 41 from 1978 to 1996. He played for the San Diego Padres for 4 years and the St. Louis Cardinals for 15 years. He played shortstop and made 2,511 out of 2,511 defensive appearances at the six hole. He was also quite consistent with his backflips as he trotted out to short. He practiced them as a youth on a sawdust pile at a lumber yard near his childhood house. Now, of course, he was most well known for his glove, but he shined in a few other areas, most notably in the speed category. He fell just 20 steals short of 600 swipe bags. His 580 are good for 22nd all time, but he was also quite the sacrifice hitter as he is top 75 all time in sacrifice hits. He was almost everything you wanted in his prototype of hitter: speedy, a good bunter, almost double the amount of walks and strikeouts, but it was arguably his bat that was his worst trait. He never really hit for power or average as he only batted over 300 once and only ever hit 6 home runs in a single season. But I think his all-time lead in defensive wins above replacement does so much more than just make up for it. Smith was elected into the Hall of Fame in 2002, winning 92.1% of the vote on his first ballot. He is currently still alive at the age of 71 and living in the St. Louis area. Brooks Calbert Robinson was born May 18, 1937 in Little Rock, Arkansas. His father had him practicing baseball before he even had the arm strength to hold up a glove. His father also sawed off old broom handles and fashioned them as bats. When Robinson was older, he said, quote, "Mom and the neighbors could always tell where I was by the ping of the rocks against those old broomsticks." In the 8th grade, he titled his career ambition essay, quote, "Why I Want to Play Professional Baseball," and more specifically, third base for the St. Louis Cardinals. He signed with the Baltimore Orioles right out of high school in 1955, no doubt crushing 8th grade Robinson's dreams. He would even make his major league debut later that year for the Orioles, but wouldn't get meaningful playing time until 1958. Robinson played in the MLB for 23 years from ages 18 to 40 from 1955 to 1977, which means one of Ozzie Smith or Brooks Robinson was in the league from 1955 to 1996. He played for the Baltimore Orioles all 23 seasons of his career. He played third base but actually had 25 appearances at shortstop and 5 at first base. So if you play immaculate grid, there you go. Just like Smith, Robinson is most well known for his glove, but he has a few other bright spots on his resume. Again, just like Smith, Robinson was quite good at sacrifices, this time sac flies, as he is 13th all time in that category. In fact, him and Robin Yount are the only players in MLB history with both 100 sacrifice hits and 100 sacrifice flies. He led the league in games played for 4 years straight from 1961 to 1964. He is 16th all time in games played. Robinson's bat was better than Smith's was, as he had 6 seasons of 20-plus home runs. It's still nothing elite, but like Smith, he more than makes up for it with his 3rd all-time rank in defensive WAR. Robinson was elected into the Hall of Fame in 1983, winning 92% of the vote on his first ballot. So now, with the backgrounds of the Wizard of Oz and Mr. Impossible done, let's dive into their stats. Starting us off is our standard stats. These are the stats that every non-baseball fan knows, like home runs, average, and, well, everything you see here. And here we can see that Robinson has the bigger bat, which makes sense as he has 2 inches and 30 pounds on Ozzie Smith. But yeah, Robinson was also just better with the bat in general, with a higher slugging percentage, hits, as well as hits per game. So not only does he have the lead in volume there, he was more efficient at getting hits. He also leads in OPS with a 703, while Mr. Smith has the number of the beast at a 666 mark. But Osborne was still very proficient at some offensive categories, including, but, well, limited to, runs, triples, steals, walks, strikeouts, and on-base percentage. But overall in the standard category section, Brooks Robinson takes the lead with 8 categories won, while Ozzie Smith takes home 6. Our next group of stats is our advanced stats. These are the ones that get more specific and deeper into the analytics of how a player's performance really went down. Just like the last section, the stats we have are listed here. And one thing we can see here, while Robinson has the lead in a lot of these categories, neither guy was really an elite bat. They both performed well enough on offense not to be a liability, and they each had an X factor. For Robinson, it was his pop, and for Smith, it was his speed. Robinson has the lead in OPS plus, an extremely important stat, meaning that compared to the leagues they played in, Robinson was 18% better at hitting as it relates to OPS. Advanced on base average is a lot closer than I thought it would be with how many more extra base hits Robinson has, but Ozzie Smith had a lot more walks and was the more disciplined hitter, so that boosts his advanced on base average as well. But Robinson's 8.4% lead in extra base hit percentage gives him the edge in advanced on base average, which was my number 2 most important hitter stat. Robinson was also better at both batting average and OPS when compared to their respective leagues, as he has the lead in both batting average and OPS difference. But Smith still takes home some categories in this section. Like I said earlier, he was the more disciplined hitter with a 2.9% lead in strikeout percentage and a 2.6% lead in walk percentage. He also has the higher batting average on balls in play despite having a lower normal average. But when it came to producing runs and power, Robinson was better, and in some areas much better, as his 2.3% home run percentage was not only better than Smith's percentage of 0.3, but it is 0.2% higher than the league average. So his power was better than league average, as also displayed by his OPS plus. Neither Robinson nor Smith were elite in win probability added, but Robinson has the big lead there, but again, neither guy was better than Eric Hosmer. So overall, in our advanced stats section, we can see that Robinson has the better overall bat with a lead in OPS plus, advanced on base average, as well as a massive advantage in power and extra base hit ability. Alright, now that we've gone through both our standard and advanced stats section, let's move on to our final section where things get interesting, the value stats. Now this section has to do with value as it pertains to run and win addition. Stats like wins above replacement and the stats that go into calculating that, as well as the WAR efficiency stats such as WAR per game and plate appearance. But the other 3 value stat horsemen are here: runs above replacement, wins above average, and runs above average. First up, let's just take a look at WAR, because this is where the scales start to look a little bit more even, because up until now Robinson was just running away with it, and even when we take a look at total WAR, he has the lead. But we must remember that Robinson played in 323 more games than Smith, which is pretty much 2 full 162 game seasons. So when we look at WAR efficiency, Smith actually takes the lead here, and it's not just by 1 point, it is a noticeable gap. He also has both a higher total offensive and defensive WAR than Robinson. But remember, total WAR isn't just those two added up, because some of the stats used to calculate offensive and defensive WAR would be duplicated if we did that. But Smith gains a second wind, a final surge of energy as we get toward the end of this head-to-head. Smith also leads in efficiency for the other 3 horsemen of value stats as well, giving him a clean sweep there. Overall, in the value section, we can see that Ozzie Smith was more efficient at getting win and run value than Brooks Robinson. It's not a huge margin, but it is noticeable and makes a difference. As well as having the lead in both offensive and defensive WAR, Ozzie Smith makes a great final push as we get to our conclusion. And now this brings us to our conclusion, where a winner must be crowned. Now for sure, this was a very close race. Both of these guys would be in the Hall of Fame if stats weren't even a thing, due to their superhuman talent and making absolutely improbable plays in the field. But with that being said, let's go to our decision. Ladies and gentlemen, after 3 rounds, we go to the judges' scorecards for decision. All 3 judges score this contest 24-21 for your winner by unanimous decision, Brooks Robinson. And in the end, it really just comes down to offensive production. Both guys have arguably the 2 best defensive resumes in history, so Robinson's noticeable lead in some of the most important stats like OPS plus and advanced on base average give him the nod. And he was just better when it came to average and OPS difference in the leagues that they played in. Sure, Ozzie Smith hasn't beaten WAR efficiency, but Brooks Robinson's right behind him, and he has more total WAR. Again, it's very close, but this time, Brooks Robinson was better. As always, thank you guys so much for coming to class. I've been Professor Baseball. You've been great. Here is your flag of the day. Leave your guess as to which country it could be in the comments down below, and I will see you next time.